Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think I work probably a little differently in terms of just going into that vaster stillness. And the tides are at times almost incidental. It's not necessarily where I spend so much time unless the body chooses to share information at the level of the tides. Mostly I'm drawn into a wider space, but I can speak to how the work has really not only informed me during earlier years of the movement of the tides, but also perhaps the more esoteric ground that we find ourselves on when we, I would say, almost transcend the tides and work primarily in Stillpoint, and also the practices that have helped me to access that, and starting to some degree with my teacher, Wes Vaught, who inspired us to really make meditation as much a part of our practice as anything that we do with the body. And that my spiritual path inspires us to introspection and to really being aware of the self and of what you bring into session. And as you clear your own field, your own emotional field, your own mental field, then we have less in the way in a way. It's almost like clearing a pathway so that we can go into those places of vast stillness with a deeper sense of the soul presence and a clearer mental filter. Ultimately, we're not really in the room in terms of the mind, and we're very much not in the room in terms of emotion. So it's almost like we've removed all of the blocks at that point, and then the being just flows gracefully, increasingly gracefully, and with increasing assurance because of practice, and with the observer, the witness, still fully present, but nothing else is there except that beautiful space of stillness and the heart of listening, which is really the essence of Hugh Milne's work, and the most resonant aspect, I would say, for me. And it's so interesting because in my own path with Craniosacral, I came in with all of these notes and books and inspirations, but the work is living. It's a conscious work. It's not contained or held or confined by structure or by theories. It's a living work. We're part of a field of consciousness that has to do with craniosacral therapy. I think I would say it that way. And that is intelligent, and it informs us at every moment when we show up in this path. We show up with a guide. And, I would say, yes, the body holds an intelligence, it holds a consciousness. And in Upledger, they speak about the inner physician. I don't personally personify it in that way. It doesn't serve me to do that. To me, it's pure consciousness. And the essence of our being is perfection. Because every physical thing in the universe has an astral or vibrational counterpart, and that vibrational counterpart isn't affected by physical injury or emotional fluctuation or mental storms, you could say. And so there's a part of us, and again, in Upledger and in biodynamics, we orient to the well-being, the wellness of the system, the wholeness of the system. And that has a very profound metaphysical anchor point, which is that we literally arise out of stillness. And that is, just said that in a few words, and yet it's huge. Those words sound simple, and yet that's the greatest mystery of existence. We arise from stillness. So when we go into stillness with our client, and when we bring stillness of the mind and stillness of the being, stillness of the heart, stillness of the emotions, and the compassion of the heart, it's holy ground, because we start to become like our true selves. And in that field of oneness with the all that is, we can meet the oneness of our client. And so, in talking about the tides, they are stepping stones that inform us to some degree of the place that we're meeting the being of our client. And rather like throwing a stone into water, and it's an image I've contemplated a lot, is like where the stone lands in the water, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of tumult, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of structure in the wave. And I think of that as the CSR. But that as that stone enters into the water, that wave spreads out. And as the ripples spread out in ever-increasing concentric circles, gradually the disruption on the surface of the water, the vibrational movement of the water gets less and less and less and less as the circular wave spreads out from that point of impact, from the stone landing on this still surface of the water. And eventually, if we have a large enough body of water, and that's meditation helps us to expand that, eventually we reach a point where the movement and the energy in that expanding, ever-expanding wave becomes barely discernible until it falls off into, ultimately, you could say almost nothingness. And even there may be still very tiny fluctuations in the wave, until eventually we arrive again in a large enough body of water. And again, to me, this is the space that we expand through our personal introspection and meditation practices. And we expand into a place where we arrive in or become present to stillness. And I think eventually, if one's practice is devoted, everyone devotes himself perhaps to a different aspect of the work, but if one's practice in stillness is devoted, I think eventually at some point there's going to be a resonance at the vibrational level. And then when you feel the field arising, when you feel their being arriving in the same space as you, and again, this is my observation, although Wes actually did begin our sessions in this way, and I think I remember the point at which I began to perceive this in session. I'm like, oh, right. We can't even do hands-on work until the field opens. I think the way that I was trained and the way that I love to practice is we're here for a much bigger journey. It's not just a craniosacral session, although that's already beautiful. But if somebody wants, as souls, we are here not to have somebody wave a magic wand and then suddenly we're better. We're here for a conscious journey. We're here to consciously witness ourselves and make choices and to craft our soul, craft our personality, craft the being that we are. And, even with all of the miraculous and extraordinary avatars, the great perfected beings that have walked on this earth, Christ, Krishna, Buddha, many more, they didn't come with a magic wand that immediately perfected all of humanity. They came as an emissary of pure divine light and to show us a pathway. And we have to walk that pathway consciously on an individual basis. We have to choose that. And I think in craniosacral, we have a profound opportunity to participate at such a sacred depth with anyone who chooses to meet our work in that way, and any practitioner that actually chooses to meet the work in that way, and many won't, because that won't be their orientation or their focus or their inspiration. But again, we retrace a pathway that has a deep sacred science, the sacred science of consciousness, how the essence of the being, the essence of our soul, our individualized soul, enters into the physical body, and how it journeys out into the experience of life and the experience of existence by way of a very known and documented pathway in Eastern philosophy that I've studied for decades, and really anchor my work in that as the deepest place that I could come to craniosacral for me, because that's my passion, that's my orientation in this lifetime, is to discover and facilitate that for myself as a soul and anyone that works or chooses to work in that way. All of these things have purpose, all of these things have meaning, all of these things have beauty, all of these things have wisdom, beautiful wisdom that's not mine. I've gathered it from profound sources over many, many years. Just know, if that's not already part of the knowing of the being, of the practitioner, is just to hold a knowingness that there is a vast sacredness that underpins this work that I haven't spoken about a great deal, certainly not in this way, but that I might, because I feel like in some way I would like to encapsulate or capture some of what the work has taught me, in case it helps somebody get there faster, to move more quickly, knowing that space exists and knowing that it's anchored in absolute reality, and it's something that once we know it's there, it's easier to touch. Once we can feel it through somebody else who has worked in that way, perhaps it's a little easier to touch than going out on a what if maybe kind of a journey into the field of the work. Whenever we meet, it's part of that greater, vaster sacred truth where two or more are gathered. And to me, craniosacral therapy is a profound threshold between the physical and the subtle, physical and the soul, the physical and the sacred. And I think when we meet the work in that way, we also create a space or hold a space to bring the essence of that truth and that profound blessedness of this field of how we can support another being in their healing journey, their evolving journey. I mean, we could say healing, we could also say awakening. And an awakening can include awakening from the duality that there's pain and wellness. And in this work, we have an opportunity to meet the being of our clients and ourselves, which is an incredible honor. To be able to work in a field that allows us to be a soul and a witnessing, loving presence who doesn't need to have any book knowledge or authority in that way, but we just show up with the depth of our silence, the depth of our stillness, the depth of our non-judging, the depth of our consciousness of the oneness in all things. And we bring that to the table with our client, and suddenly we are truly on holy ground. That's the truth of what I can share. There was a point in time at which I sort of relabeled my relationship with craniosacral as a way of knowing, a way of being with, and let go of so much of the structure of the work, so much of the structure of the technique. The way the work has taught me has taken me into the space of stillness as a primary meeting place with the being. And then body, mind, and spirit are all in that. but the vibrational field is so subtle that there's this, craniosacral is non-doing, and a non-doing in the still point, or at the most subtle outer edges of that wave, is it's a rarefied field of beingness. It's verging on the sacred, and to be able to interact with our mortality, our physicality, our humanity at the level of the being is an incredible blessing. Isn't it amazing to be in this work? To me, it's amazing that it exists. And therefore, the purity of our heart, the purity of our mental state that we bring, and not even bring in an active way, but just who we are as a being, we're all here on a journey. We're all here to continually refine and improve and transform ourselves, and to become a higher and higher and more beautiful and intentional version of ourselves. I believe that is the essence of why we're created, and it's not a belief that comes out of my own original thought. It comes from the great teachings that underpin our human species on this earth, and the ancient and profound souls who have come to earth in a perfected state of consciousness, and those who are still here among us on this planet that are here in a perfected state of consciousness. We're here to become, they're here as mirrors of what's possible. And we're here to clean that mirror. And I think at Craniosacral we have an extraordinary opportunity to support our clients in releasing and letting go of those things which stand as blocks, contractions in the physical, the mental, the emotional field, and to enter into a space of sacred stillness and witness the unfolding and the arising of the being. So I think that's what I wanted to share for today. I'm just sending so much love, so much blessings and aloha, and look forward to sharing more with you very soon. Namaste.